I have a concern that every time we come up with, we have experience a software problem, we come up with a hardware solution. That's a great deficit. The problem lies not with the institutions we have crafted, but it lies with the people. In the very narrow sphere of appointment of judges, for instance, I have this concern. I often share it by your friend and mentor, Venkatramani and Sir Vijayakumar, the esteemed Vice Chancellor, as to whether if you change the composition of the selection committee, by whatever name it's called, would it have serious consequences on the quality of the outcomes? I don't think it would. Essentially, we are subjective. We are not able to look beyond our noses, tip of our noses. And we don't have a sense of history, and as a great Oxford historian, Jewish intellectual, Yuval Noah Harari suggests, we are not good at storytelling either, because there is no continuity of story. When we make a Sholay sequel, we remove Basanti and Gabbar Singh. Therefore, the movie is a flop. There is no continuity in the theme. And every institution is befuddled. There are moments when the executive branch, be it the permanent executive or the elected executive, is extremely unhappy with the judicial branch when it interferes in some areas. In other areas, the executive branch, for instance, in disputes which are not amenable to political resolution, like interstate water disputes, for instance, or some other areas akin to that, the legislature is extremely happy with the judiciary picking up the gauntlet and trying to solve its own, in its own way, its own uninformed, ill-informed way, a resolution of that intractable problem. In other areas where it touches upon their core political interests, venal, myopic, transient political interess, the executive whistles when the judiciary wants to have a say. But once power is like an aphrodisiac, once you get used to it, it's difficult to let go. But once you have tasted blood of executive functioning, the judiciary can't let go. And though by definition judges are wise, or at least call themselves so, because the legal profession addresses us as honorable, learned, so sometimes we start believing this. It's in their interest to call us learned and honorable, and it's used so often that that Goebbelsian induction takes over, and we start deluding ourselves that we are indeed both. So start exercising power, we tell people what to do, we tell the chief secretary how to run the show, we tell economists how to run the economy, we tell philosophers how to write philosophy. There's nothing we cannot do. And that's a problematic. And the people are just not concerned. A democracy which is not a conversation, democracy in which the people do not participate, it's a contradiction in terms. Law is too serious to be left only to the lawyers and judges. Law is a critical, rule of law is a very critical component of human existence when you have chosen the algorithm of democracy. So each one of you in your own way, not to be concerned with it. And as 2005 years ago, simultaneously as Buddha was announcing his philosophy, the guy was poisoned by his people, a guy called Socrates. and he said an unexamined life is not worth living. But we are happily living without examining what our democracy is about. And we are so preoccupied with trivia, the price of petrol, the price of a movie ticket, what designer trouser or shirt or a skirt will buy, it's available, not available. That the deeper issues, the deeper concerns that should really trouble people in general are not addressed. And we look forward too much to political leadership of one shade or the other. And unfortunately, I don't see any leadership. I haven't seen any leadership for the past half a century in this country. It is a followership masquerading as leadership. You know, there are sequels in Hollywood, in Bollywood. One movie is a hit, Sholay 1, Sholay 2, Sholay 3, Dabangg 1, Dabangg 2, whatever. So we have a political complexion of one variety. When you get bored with it, the same guys with another flag, with another symbol come up and then give you the same old wine and new bottle. Contrary to current learned analysis of politics in India, I'll eschew the first decade when we were still romancing the great freedom movement. Let's do the first 10 years of our political formulations. Thereafter, we continuously had, in my view, my analysis and likely to be as long as anybody else, that we had a coalition government. Always. After the first decade, after 50, we had a coalition in power of some Brahmins, Muslim, Dalits. Thereafter, another guy came, he tweaked the machine, and with a coalition of backward classes, and the entire country now wants to be backward. The entire country wants to be minority. We are talking about linguistic minority, the state centric, is it a federal unit on the basis of which minority should be decided. Because there is some empowerment, the transient day-to-day empowerment of being a minority or a backward class. You get a bigger piece of the cake, whether you can digest it or not is a different question. Ever since we have had coalitions and the so-called leadership dividing people into more units than Niels Bohr would have managed in identifying the structure of the atom. What does, I think I'll put it, my thoughts in a few lines and better read them out on leadership, political leadership, and how I conceive it. This is what I have noted down. Political leadership of a nation must lead, mentor, and transform obsolete and counter-democratic proclivities of individuals in society. If democracy is to progress from a mere structural format to operational reality, where all shades of representative arrangements in the polity employ and leverage the endemic, sectarian, divisive, and obsolete notions of caste, color, gender, religion, parochial, and other insularities of the population that negate harmonious coexistence of our immense, complex and polychromatic democracy, the fissures only deepen and a complex, diverse society regresses to a disaggregated tribal past, and the idea of nationhood remains a chimera. Politics that merely advantages extant cleavages in the social fabric for entering upon or perpetuation in public office does not answer the description of leadership. With apologies to the English language, it merely amounts to followership, a copycat replication of a successful past pathogen. Also, liberal rhetoric cannot substitute assiduous, sustained efforts towards eradicating from the popular psyche the toxic elements that are counter-democratic and destroy all integers requisite for nation building. This is the urgent need of the hour, and the qualities of head and heart that can bring about such transformation of current social assumptions are the only route to nation building. Is that happening? I don't see it happening. I don't expect it to happen in the near future. There is occasionally a rhetoric devoid of substance. This is a country, 1.3 billion people, largest democracy in the world. But many informed people say that we are 1.3 and growing billion atoms masquerading as molecules. We are not a nation. Is it true? It appears to be true. When you go across, people describe themselves as belonging to one religion or the other, caste, community, language. The great pride in being a nation. And at a time, we have not yet graduated to becoming the idea of nationhood. And sovereignty itself is on the decline. Not only on the decline, on the verge of obsolescence. Today, technology and pathogens don't respect sovereignty. Economics doesn't respect sovereignty. Degradation of climate does not respect sovereignty. Sovereignty itself doesn't respect itself. The sovereignty that we talk about is not of the Austinian variety either. Every one of us knows, even an applicant to law school knows that the Austin is obsolete. He was perhaps right for about half a century. Before he voted, by the time he voted, sovereignty was in decline. Sovereignty is itself on the verge of obsolescence. We have not yet started at the time it is almost become obsolescent. The idea of a coalescence into a nationhood. So what are we looking forward to? I don't know. I only take comfort in the fact that on historical analysis, all civilizations are restored. Today you talk about the Greek civilization, Egyptian civilization, ancient Chinese civilization. One day, perhaps not in my lifetime, but certainly I hope, I believe, not hope, I believe that in your lifetimes, there will be a story of the country called India. About 50 years, satisfactory amount of wisdom. Thereafter, people fell to their normal behavior, regressed to their normal behavior, they fought amongst themselves, they identified all the insularities and forgot about their identities. And they ceased to exist as a civilization. It's a story. 7 decades, 8 decades, 9 decades, what have you? Even a 2.5 century old democracy today is seriously concerned. This was in a book I shared with Venkatramani, How Democracies Died. It's a worth read by Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Ziblatt, who are professors. and they identify integers of failed or failing democracies which emerge out of a democratic charter. Takes instances of the Third Reich, Mussolini, Hugo Chavez, and also what's happening in the US today. And many of the problematic flags that Ziblatt and Levitsky talk about in that book, you find very serious parallels here and there. We are comfortable with that. One safeguard of democracy, the robust judiciary which polices only to the extent required. We have hiccups in our judicial trajectory when you speak so often that judicial discourse regresses from being a symphony to a cacophony. When out of that branch comes not coherence, but incoherence, doctrinal incoherence. When there is no continuity, there is no standard doctrine emerging, and it's a vital function of that branch. Other two branches are said to have been compromised and imploding. The fourth estate of democracy, well, it is so full of scams that there is no hope that it will be a monitor of power. It has become a supplicant of wealth. It has ceased to be a monitor of power. So in my friend Venkatramani has said that we should not be cynical. But I think it's also useful to be cynical. If you have delusions of physiological grandeur, then you are nearer to the crematorium than you are home. We should have a healthy skepticism, and a continuous healthy skepticism of the vibrancy and vitality of the enterprise that you, or at least your ancestors, immediate ancestors, have crafted for you about 7 decades ago. Look at it. Does the operative reality of Indian society today correspond, at least approximately, to what was conceived, what was envisioned by the founding fathers 7 decades ago? Not that they were the wisest, or that what they said, what they wrote is binding on you. Do you have an alternative script? Do you have an alternative value? Do you have any value at all? I worked in an institution which trains judicial officers. Some of them occasionally ask me. So I see many of my colleagues, younger colleagues, making money. Till now I have been clean. Do you think it was worth it? Do you think I was right? Sometimes ask me, because I'm retired and I've been in service, they wouldn't ask me that question, because bravery is not one thing that we have inherited, and that's why you still romance movies like Panipat and Rani, the old historical fiction, semi-fiction movies. So there's bravery and chivalry there. We have lost all that sense, and therefore we still romance it forward, eagerly at those old stories. I tell them, look, the sun, not according to physical science, but sun is supposed to rise in the east. And it's been doing so for billions of years, at least 4.9 billion years. If you have cosmologists' view of that. But if one day the sun, or God, says, look, I've been doing this job day after day, for millions of years. Unless you pay $50, I don't buy any these two. Existence will come to a close. And therefore, since you are the intensive care unit of the democracy, you should work like the sun, only for your salary, only for your orbit, destined ordained text orbit, not for anything else. I tell them, but I am apprehensive whether it will really register, because the examples that we see are so venal, so wild, so regressive, that we don't have very sturdy exemplars in contemporary society. On this table, we have had a romance with life so long. We are riding to our respective sunsets. And a big enterprise collapsing will take some time, so we don't expect anything cataclysmic to happen before time takes a toll. You young people have a lot to look forward. So, tear that wheel and fabric of miasma, of illusion. Look into the reality of what's happening in the world and in our own democracy. This toying with the parliamentary democracy is right or something else. A friend of mine, a very erudite scholar, colleague of mine, judge, once very cynically remarked, we have wonderful choices for our political leadership in this country. I said, is that so? He said, yes. That's like, you are given a choice of 3 in life. For 5 years, you will have a very troublesome cancer. After 5 years, you will have 5 years of bubonic plague. After that, 5 years, let us say, of coronavirus. So after 4.5 years, you say, this time, cancer, I suffered a lot, this chemotherapy, radiation, all that. I am looking forward to bubonic plague. Some change. Then after 4 years and 11 months of bubonic plague, with all your sores and all that, whatever consequence of that, so okay, coronavirus seems to be better. There will be no fuss on the body, to be clean. Dry cough, I am told, not wet cough. Relatively comfortable. So are they the choices? Are they the vibrant choices of a democracy? Between one shade of excruciating trauma